Generally, I have been ill since childhood, since I was born. I've got bronchitis for the first time when I was 3 months old. It was always put down to allergy, asthma, or hay fever. It became worse when I came back from a sanatorium. I was affected with mycoplasma. Then I ended up in hospital, in Żabka-Zdrój, and everyone seemed to think I could have cystic fibrosis. For 5 years I was treated for cystic fibrosis. I had genetic tests done, but it all came to nothing, so the doctors gave up. I stopped going there, but the infections and the weakness continued to occur. We went to the Kopernik hospital in Łódź. I stayed there for a few days for tests, and all my medical records were looked through. After a couple of days, they knew I had alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, and after a fortnight, they called us to come immediately, and it turned out that I had primary immunodeficiency. After the first few days, the intravenous administration I had been given gave me agonizing stomach pains and a fever. I felt very ill. Everything was okay for a fortnight, and then in the last week or so, before the next infusion, there was an infection and I got pneumonia. So I had to go back to hospital and having antibiotics, and I had to go through the same thing every month. Now I have subcutaneous infusions. It is the best solution for me, since I have more options in life now. I am not dependent on hospitals or drips. I can take it wherever I want. In the meantime, when I was constantly ill, I had other problems as well. I felt bad and had stomach pains, and I had a lot of problems with my digestion. And after I had all the tests done, it turned out I had gastroesophageal reflux disease and gallbladder dyschensia. It involves numerous drugs and specialist diet, but I managed. Unfortunately, in my early years of middle school, when I was so often ill and started having individual lessons, the most difficult period in my life was when I was at secondary school. It was discovered that I had immunodeficiency. At first, I could still somehow deal with intravenous infusions, but by the end of the school year, I had to change to subcutaneous infusions. In the beginning, it was difficult to bear mentally, that you have to inject yourself and so on. But it offered me more opportunities. I didn't have to go to hospital all the time, and I did not have any contact with the germs. At some point, I got used to it. I didn't go to school for a long time. The last 6 years of my education was at home. Now I go to university. Unfortunately, it will be more individual lessons because I will study part-time and only be going in for tests. Now I have the subcutaneous therapy, as the intravenous infusions have had a very bad effect on me. I have had excruciating spleen pains and fevers, and felt weak. For the first 3 days, I lived at home under the blanket and was generally dying. I didn't know whether it would go away or not, and that was every month. And then suddenly my doctor said that it was time I had subcutaneous infusions, and I must say that they had a very good effect on me to this day, and I feel good with it. I don't have any side effects, which is a definite plus. I try to live normally as possible, but I can't go to parties too often. Generally, I can't go where there are large crowds of people. My every outing, even to the clinic for a prescription, if I don't put on a mask, it ends up with me getting infections, pneumonia, and then having to go back onto antibiotics. By the end of last year, my condition was very serious, and I had antibiotic therapy for 5 months. That had me back on my feet, but even so, they prescribed antibiotics for every coughing or sneezing fit I had. At first, it was very difficult, particularly when the subcutaneous infusion started. I had a bad time mentally. I wasn't able to perform the infusions. I ended up on antidepressants. Now several months have passed, over a year, and I feel better, but I still have my moments when I start the infusions. I sit down and cry for 5 minutes, and mentally try to prepare myself. And despite everything, I have to take the injections. Besides, it gives me plenty of options in life, so I try to deal with it somehow.